Welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line. I'm your host, Bert Miller. My guest today is Sean Parkhurst, who has taken an unusual path to become the CEO of an emerging CPG company. He studied finance both in his undergrad and international programs, served as a lobbyist in D.C. in the utilities sector, and has found his way into CPG through management consulting and is now the CEO of REDCON. REDCON1 is a mission-based sports nutrition company to help their customers thrive. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Thank you, Bert.
Love having you here.
It's great to be here.
So you've taken an unusual path to where you are, and I think when I say unusual path, I think it's a compliment to you because most people go through a normal program and a traditional linear way to becoming a leader in CPG or whatever industry or sector they're in, and you've had what I would call a broad industry experience. So I really love that. So how have you varied, in terms of your path, how have you varied your experiences and how has these multiple things that you've done influenced your leadership style?
Yeah, no, thank you, Bert. My path to this opportunity with REDCON1 to serve as their CEO really has not, as you kind of said, not been just, I came into CPG one day and kind of worked through that process for 20, 30 years. I also didn't found my own CPG company, which is kind of a traditional path as well. My experiences have been across various industries, starting in for-profit education, working in hospitality management, then really kind of looking at my career trajectory and saying, is this on the right pathway that I want it to be on today? And I took a step back, went back and got my MBA, and then got into consulting where I got to expand my interactions and interface with different various businesses, whether that was utility sector, automotive, and looking at those challenges that those businesses had from a different perspective, right? Come in, learn the business, really be able to provide value right away. And so, my experience took some people to have to take a risk, a shot. Not always do people and leaders do that. So, when I'm looking at people that I am interested in or that have interesting backgrounds, I want to learn more about that because, I think the way that I lead is that I want to understand them and the value that those people can add to the table. And so when we're in interview processes or when we're kind of talking about their background, I want to know what skills they have. What are transferable? Right. Are they thinkers? Are they really bringing ideas to the table? Because, the way that I look at leadership is we set a path, but we don't always do all the work, of course. And I want ideas brought into the tables where we can all kind of think through all of these things that we have, these challenges that we have to kind of solution. And if it's always individuals on the team that have the same background, well, you're likely going to get the same answers pretty often. Well, this is how it's been done previously, or this is what my previous employer did it. But if you look at individuals that bring different varying backgrounds to the table, they can come solve a problem in a very different way that is quite beneficial to the overall performance of the business. And I look for that because I feel like I've done that in my career where I've had opportunities to serve in roles that were non-traditional in the sense I, joined Huron Consulting Group in 2019 as a financial advisor. My path was not through audit. Many people get through audit, they've become, join a big four, kind of work through audit and get there. Mine was through lobbying, very different perspective. But the way that I tackled problems was beneficial to the ultimate clients. And then I think those experiences helped me kind of get to where I am today.
Yeah, I agree with you. The diversity of thought is what's really, really incredible. So as you think about that, you had all these different opportunities, and Sean, and what I'm really curious about is CPG. What is it about CPG that's got you excited, and specifically, we'll talk about REDCON1 specifically in a moment, but it's led you to an industry that people enjoy. They consume products, beverages, food, whatever it may happen to be, in order to either functionally improve themselves and or just sustain themselves. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I've always wanted to do, whether it's my career, family, life, other things, it's really helping people, right? And CPG really gives you that opportunity to directly impact the consumer. Specifically with REDCON, not only are we developing and servicing our customers with high performance sports nutrition products and energy beverage and RTD products that really help both their workouts, make them feel better, make them, if they help their pumps, make them get stronger, right? But it also, we are a mission based company where we do what we do because proceeds of all of our transactions and all of our sales go to help the military, right? Not only that, we put it on our Can Energy specifically that, proceeds from this, proceeds from these sales transactions go to support the military. We've had a long and great relationship with Folds of Honor, for example, which sends, those donations and those dollars go directly to children of fallen soldiers that then have scholarships to universities. And it's just an amazing thing that we're trying to do, and that we do it because we want to help people. And CPG is one of the quickest and easiest ways to develop a product with the end consumer in mind. And then we have the ability to go out and build a brand around something that matters, right? So REDCON1, the highest state of readiness, right? We want our consumer base to feel prepared, feel ready for whatever their day comes, right? So, one of the funny things, no one's going to wake up this morning, Bert, I bet you did not wake up this morning and say, you know what, I don't want to be ready today.
Right. Well, I find it interesting because there's so many brands out there that try to be altruistic in their viewpoints. We have this mission, we have that mission, we give to this. But the name of your company and the brand and what you guys stand for, it's not altruistic at all. It's who you guys are. It's part of your connective tissue and your DNA.
That's exactly right. It's down to everything that we do in the organization is built around, our mission to provide back to our military and support them in every way possible. We consistently run programs where we'll do a promotional activity, and that those proceeds or a portion of those proceeds will go directly to a foundation. That weekend, we send the money.
What drove this? I mean, where did this originate? How did it start?
I think it was ultimately, the organization really has a long history of love for country and love for the people that serve and give their lives to this country, whether it's first responders, whether it's the military. We have a long affinity for that demographic. And honestly, to your point, people will run a promotion on a Saturday one time and hey, we're going to do something for the military. Everything we do, whether it's REDCON1, the name, whether it's, MRE, our protein product, Meals Ready to Eat, right? The military guys would probably say something, hey, I don't know but hey, that's the very first whole food protein product out in the marketplace, no way. It's really tying it all into that because we have a love for country. It is through everything that we do. And one of the best ways to show that is really through our support of the military and our first responders and how we can provide products that both they can take and feel stronger, faster, and more prepared and more ready to do everything that they do every day to keep us safe.
Yeah, I love the MRE. For those who have not tried the bars, you got to try the bars.
Got to try the bars.
They're amazing. All right, that's outstanding. And I love the fact that, and then we'll get off this topic, but I really love the fact because, to your point, there's people that can have programs beginning and end. But this is really driven from the top and who you guys are, which is a sustainable, not a program, it's a sustainable mission. I love that. So let's talk about a little bit about you, because we've talked already about your non-traditional pathway, and I love that, by the way. I think that really sets you up to be very successful in CPG world. But to become a CPG executive, you took this different route. How do you find that you differ than the traditional founder that might move into a CEO role that may replace him or herself with somebody else that's come up through whatever channel in CPG? How do you find yourself different?
Yeah, I think our founder, Aaron Singerman, is an absolute amazing leader of the organization, still very much active in everything that we do. I think my path to CEO is really, kind of bridged from the financial background that I bring to the table, right? Being a financial advisor really kind of roots you in the finances and evidence-based analysis of kind of like how to move forward. I had the opportunity to work on one of the largest bankruptcy cases here in the state of Florida, and that was a CPG company. And so, coming in and really grabbing the reins of that process, ultimately serving as the chief commercial officer there, really kind of launched that education, that entire kind of view of how does this process work from a financial perspective. And I think when organizations are looking to grow the way that we are growing, it's really important to both be able to test and ultimately iterate ideas, new to product, new to market products, and be able to be thoughtful about the entire process that goes into that. I think, as people are, as owners or founders are developing, they tend to come from sales. They've been in that process for a really long time, and it's obviously grow. And that's, of course, what I want to do as well. We want to absolutely continue to grow. We have a great trajectory, bringing new products to market. But also at the same time, you have to have the ability to then build up the operations, build up a distribution network, finance that growth, and kind of build all of that collectively, or you're going to get to a certain point where it gets really challenging, right? And so having, and I think my background from, having a background in sales, having a background in project management, spending years as a lobbyist and really thinking of ideas and challenges, and then being in the financial sector really brings all of those things together, where I can go in the marketing room and we can talk about how are we talking to our customers? Is our brand messaging working? Do we need to run do a competitive analysis? Do we need to do a marketing analysis? And kind of look at where things are and really start to think about our decisions, and then how do we then layer in a plan to execute against that effectively? And then while all at the same time, how much is that going to cost? How are we, what level of revenue will that generate? And really asking those questions. I think, coming from a management consulting and financial advisory role, really is ingrained that inquisitive background, right? Where you ask those questions of your leadership team, because that's what we do. That's what I did as a management consultant. You ask a lot of questions to really get the answers out of them. And so this is then the same kind of process, but at the same time, being able to layer in that strategic vision, asking my internal and external stakeholders questions, and trying to bottle all of that up, put a plan together, and really execute that.
I love that holistically. I really do love that holistic, and I do think it really prepares you in this sector. If you think about it, your educational background, you also had the opportunity then to educate. You've educated others. International experience, spent time in DC and built some of those relationships, come from a finance background, and then you've gone into organizations, sometimes where business is thriving and probably sometimes where business is not thriving.
That's correct.
And be able to ask the questions, and that learning has had to put a thumbprint on you coming to REDCON. That leads me to the next thing. You mentioned how you've come down this path, and there was a bankruptcy here in South Florida, and you played a significant role. It's turned out quite well.
Yeah. So we served at the time as the chief restructuring officer, ultimately the interim CEO role for the Vital Pharmaceutical Bang Energy bankruptcy case here in the state of Florida. I served in a leadership capacity within that, kind of managing the internal and external stakeholders, whether that was building relationships internally with the staff who did an amazing job. All the people there worked so hard.
What a success story, though, right?
Oh, we ran the process through the bankruptcy and ultimately led to a transaction with Monster Energy. And I think it was a complex bankruptcy process. There was a lot of moving pieces, a lot of complexity around some of the legalities and the legal issues that the company was facing, and ultimately working through all of that successfully, because there was, Bert, I can't tell you how many advisors across the board there were, because there was, whether it was the UCC or their lender, and all the moving pieces and all the complexity around that. It was hard, right? It was a very complex case. that ultimately ended up with a successful transaction at the end of the bankruptcy, really turning it over and being able to kind of put a stamp on the end of that.
Well, Monster, it already existed, right?
Yep.
So there had to be unique things to Bang that were really, really attractive,
Yeah.
and ultimately came together as a transaction.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think one of the things, Bang was an absolute pioneer early on with regards to the social media marketing. I mean, they, built a brand from social years ago. It took a while to obviously get there, but that was their main marketing channel, and it was before its time. It really was, and it really allowed them to grow successfully. I think ultimately, Gene Bukovi, who built out the distribution network, was massively successful there. He was one of the reasons why I ended up at REDCon. Honestly, I wanted to follow him, to REDCon to duplicate that level of success with our distribution partners and our relationships that he brought to the table there, and then be able to kind of use all of those relationships to ultimately build out a distribution network and kind of be successful. But whether it was the marketing campaigns, the allure of Bang, and all those other things, Monster obviously felt that it was a worthwhile endeavor to continue pursuing that and successfully ended that. Successfully move forward with that transaction.
Yeah. So let's talk about REDCon.
Yeah.
And building REDCon. So that's just a great segue from how you guys came together, how you helped that whole transaction. You show up at REDCon. Most consumer products companies are great at consumer branding. Mm-hmm. Many, if not most, companies struggle with their hiring brand. So there's a reason that you were excited to join REDCon. What attracted you to REDCon, and how is that attraction lending itself to building your organization?
Yeah. So, again, first, the people in leadership there are just absolutely amazing. Again, whether it's Aaron, the founder, Eric, the co-founder, they've really built that with their own blood, sweat, and tears, right? For over 8 years, REDCon has been a very successful brand. When you take a step and you look at, again, purpose-driven, right? It is something that I believe in from my years in politics before, it really was something that I believed in and I could connect with. Because it wasn't just, flashy or this or that. It was like it stood for something and it stood on its principles. And I think that's really valuable. And I think as we think about why do we do the things that we want to do every day, whether it's show up at work, be part of something exciting, and then actually have it make worthwhile, right? Like those three combinations really were something that drew me to Aaron, and ultimately to REDCon1. As we think about building a hiring brand, right? Like we have, a really exciting group of people that are there, that are looking at things the way that I kind of look at it. I want them to be creative in their hiring processes. Be thoughtful of who we're talking to. Industry experience is really helpful, but it's not the only thing that we look for. Transferable skill sets, a willingness to roll up your sleeves, a willingness to bring ideas to the table, right? Like something where you can directly create impact. As a CEO, I walk around all day long talking to everybody in the organization, whether it's the CMO, whether it's the CFO, whether it's down into accounting, whether it's HR, whether it's order processing, whether it's in the warehouse, right? Like everyone has the ability to problem solve. Hey, what's going on? What are you seeing? Tell me a little bit about this, because it helps me understand the big picture, right? I can, CEOs, if they sit up at top and they just say, hey, this is what we're going to do.
The ivory tower.
The ivory tower effect, right? Like you don't really know unless you ask the right questions. And I want people to also understand that when we bring them in, we don't have all the answers today. We're growing, we're expanding, we're doing new things, and their insights are valuable. And I want people to understand that if you're looking at coming to REDCon, we want you there because of your ideas, because you have a chance to make direct impact on brand ideas, new product development, whether it's a new process, whether it's a technology option, whether it's warehousing, whether it's 3PL, go down the list, right? But like, we're looking for people in all of those spaces that would be really excited to kind of join a team where their voice is heard and their ideas can be acted upon.
Well, it's always about the people, right?
Yeah.
100% about the people. The one thing you said that has been coming up a lot lately, both in the business I'm in as well as many of these interviews that we've been having with other CEOs, and I love that part, is really about the skill sets versus just the experience. You just get talent in the building. You guys will do the rest. You got to get the right people literally in the building.
You got to get the right people in the building. And, again, having a non-linear kind of work way through a one industry background, right, allows me to bring a lot of different viewpoints to the table. And I look at that as a value add. And so when I'm looking at individuals and when I talk to them, I'm like, hey, I want to learn more about not just your experience maybe in this one place, but how is all of this build to, how would you come in and do this job right now, right? Like, you have a background, you have experience. Tell me more about that.
What about strategy, though? What strategy have you put in place to attract, make that part of your hiring brand?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So we have, right now, I mean, I think what we would do is, from a strategic standpoint, is as we're bringing in new leadership, new guidance, they're bringing in people that they trust, of course, but I've reached out to, I've utilized various recruiters.
Well, we look forward to that.
Yeah. But obviously we use a array of different go-to-market strategies with regards to attracting talent. We have a pretty large social media platform where we can reach out. People are excited. They send us resumes. I think that's a fun way to do it, but it's not overly productive.
It's not efficient either.
It's not efficient, right? So, but I think ultimately it's still associated with the brand of the business, and people are excited. We are very active on social media, always presenting our message and always putting our brand out there. And I think people gravitate to that and they look for an opportunity. I think bringing your personal relationships and your network to play as well has been quite successful for us.
Yeah. And so this whole functional area of what I would call sports nutrition, a lot of companies are out there, a lot more are popping up. What do you see the trends? What trends are you reading? What tea leaves are you reading, and how's that affecting you guys and your decisions?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think one of the things we're really excited about has been kind of the shift to on the go, right? We're really seeing that less and less are, I think people have, let's put it right out there. COVID really changed a lot of the way that people both shopped and acted. And so, people want to be able to kind of have that simplicity. The MRE protein shake, right? It's a pre-made protein shake, full whole food protein, ready to go. Grab it and drink 40 grams of protein, and you're good to go, right? Like, that is exactly where we envision the marketplace continuing to go, and that's what we're excited about. We have, a array of RTDs, like you talked about the MRE. We have Can Energy. We have a pre-workout protein or pre-workout product called Total War RTD, which is a amazing product. And then we just recently dropped our Total War shots. So now we have, that wide array of options. But then you even brought up earlier the MRE bars, the on the go. Again, readiness is at the core of what we want to be. REDCON1, the highest state of readiness. Whether it's somebody getting ready to go to the gym, they grab their pre-workout ready to drink, they crush that, go have a great pump. Whether it's post with a protein, whether it's a soccer mom who's grabbing a bunch of MRE bars and throwing it in the purse and going to do the day's activities, right? Like, everyone wants to be ready and everyone's on the go. We're all really busy. And so we want to make convenience as easy as possible. And I think, that's what we're excited about, and that's one of the things that we continue to see in the marketplace.
All right, so I have my own thoughts about this next question, but you're still a fairly young guy. Okay. So I'm 27 years old, and I see your background and others like you's background. What are a couple, 2 or 3, I guess, recommendations that you would give a 27, 28-year-old person who wants to become a leader?
Yeah.
Whether it be CPG or otherwise.
Yeah, CPG or otherwise. I think, one of the biggest things, I'll just put it out there, never give up, right? Like, life is full of opportunities to stop, to stop trying to just kind of settle, right? In my own personal background, the reason why I went to business school was I didn't exactly love my trajectory, right? I had to make a pivot. I had to make a hard decision, but I didn't stop, right? And I think, one of the things that I would instill in others is this is a long game. Mm-hmm. All of this is a very long game, and that every day make progress, right? And I think as it relates to just continuing, it's being inquisitive and being humble. Those are two real things that I think are really helpful in developing a leadership style, because it isn't always, you may not always be right, but if you ask the questions and then you gather the intel and then you say, hey, let's go do this, that's one thing. I feel like asking the right questions, being inquisitive, giving the data, and then being humble about, I may not always have the right answers.
Right.
And I need to ask those questions, and I need to be willing to listen to the feedback. And then I want to then set the strategy and go do it, and then hold people accountable along the way. But without being humble, I feel like that blocks a lot of people's ability to, I'm right. You might not be right.
Right.
And that's okay if you're willing to kind of ask those questions.
Yeah. So I want to summarize this for our listeners, because I took some notes here. I have 6 words: endurance, do not settle, have agility, be willing to make changes and adapt, long game versus a finite time. So it's not just a short game, it's a long game, curiosity, and humility. Those are the 6 categories. I think I summed those up pretty well, Dan.
I think you did a great job, Bert. May I add one more?
Okay, sure.
I'll add one more, please. Intentionality. I think having thoughtful ideas and then being intentional about your actions.
Yeah, I like that. I like doing things with intention. All right, last question. I ask everybody this before they leave the show. Who's the single most important person that has influenced you most professionally?
So I've thought a lot about this question.
Okay.
Right? I've worked from a lot of great leaders and great business owners in my days. And I think back to one individual who not only was my boss at the lobbying firm in DC, but really became a mentor to me. Michael O'Bannon is his name. He's the founder of the EOP group. And he's somebody that really, as a leader, is demanding, holds you accountable, asks you really hard questions about where do you want to be in your career, and then will honestly hold you accountable to achieving those goals and objectives that you set out for you. And on a personal level, he's done that for me. From a professional level, a lot of what I learned from him with regards to leadership is, if in most of my career since working with him and for him and then moving on into other roles, I've dealt with business owners, boards of directors, banks, bank boards, shareholders, et cetera, right? Like leadership across the board. And if you're timid, you don't own the facts, and you're worried about how you feel or how you look, it doesn't matter what you have to say. It's not going to work.
Well,
and so that was one of the things that he really, it's like, if you're talking to your best friend or you're talking to a business executive, you got to treat it the same way. Yeah. You got to have respect for that individual, of course, but you have to, you can't be soft about it. And that's one of the things that I've really thought.
I love that. It takes 2 to tango, right? And it also takes somebody that's really, really serious, because what I heard is that he was caring, but he also was highly demanding, accountable, but he was that way because he wanted you to be better.
That's right.
And that's caring. So that's fantastic. Sean, this has been wonderful. It's been fun, been very informational. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Bert.
Absolutely. This is Bert Miller, and I'll see you next time on Beyond the Bottom Line. Thank you.